Vineeta. I'm from San Jose, California, and I'm going to be a sophomore next year at Lynbrook High School. I created an app called Vigil, which is basically an app that aims to reduce the exposure of COVID-19 to users that are using it. Okay, so as you already know, my name is Vineeta Muvvala, and my app is Vigil. Vigil works as a nonprofit organization that aims to help users that are using the app stay COVID-free by providing locations that are already exposed to COVID-19. Today, you guys, the judges, will be playing the role of giving grant funding in order to kickstart my project. Can you guys see the next screen, or is it not working?
It didn't work. Try putting in percent mode again.
Okay, yeah, that works.
Yeah, all right.
So the problem. First off, as you already know, COVID-19 cases continue to rise not only in our country, but across the world, as there are over 800 plus cases per day across the country in 12 states. Finding out if you have COVID-19 symptoms, as well as taking the test, can take multiple weeks, as symptoms can take 2 to 14 days to occur, as well as testing can take 1 to 1.5 days to actually get results. Furthermore, you may not know if nearby locations have had contact with COVID-19 recently and if they are available for a customer to go there. So Vigil's unique value proposition. Vigil reduces the exposure of COVID-19 by informing customers about COVID-exposed locations and alerting how prone customers are to the virus. Vigil solved this problem using 2 features. First off, Vigil provides information on how probable customers are to the exposure of COVID-19, as well as providing nearby testing centers in case they want to get tested. Furthermore, Vigil provides a map of locations users can't visit based on their frequently visited locations, locations they want to visit in the future, as well as their address. So what is Vigil's target market? First off, Vigil aims to have users that range from teenagers to the elderly, so basically comprising of all ages. It also aims to have users who have a spike of locations in their location. So that includes Alaska, Texas, Nevada, or really big cities that include Seattle, New York City, etc. And lastly, Vigil is basically going to be used until the end of the year, or as coronavirus cases start to die down. So I'm estimating that's around 6 to 8 months. So my influence goal. First off, as you already know, Vigil wants to work as a nonprofit organization. So we're basically going to be registering as a 501c3. I'm also asking for a grant funding of $5,000 for advertisement plus building and website. So over here, you can see a few actions that I'm going to take, which includes registering for the nonprofit, building the code and the website, publishing it on Apple Store and Google Play, as well as having advertisement and using the money for future years. And on the right is how I'm going to be basically using the money. So for example, I'm going to be needing money for advertisement or registering, things like that. So here's a quick demo of how Vigil is going to work, and I built this on framer.io.
Welcome to Vigil. This is the screen you first see when you open up the app. Over here, you can enter in your email or your password, or you can sign up. This leads you to a page where you can enter in your user information. This includes inserting your email and your password, as well as for confirmation, as well as your contact information we can refer to. This then leads you to a page where you enter in your location. First, you enter in your home address, which is the most important, and then you can enter in recently visited locations or locations that you want to visit in the near future. You can also enter in more locations if you need to. This then leads to our homepage. Over here is a map of avoidable locations that are marked with exclamation points or warning signs. This is based on your recently visited locations or a nearby radius of your home. It also shows how prone you are to COVID-19, which is also based on the number of COVID-19 cases near your area or your recently visited locations. You can then find the nearest COVID-19 testing centers if you want to. This then leads you to a page of available locations for where you can get COVID-19 tested. You can then go back to home.
So yeah, that was just a quick demo of how Vigil is going to work, or how I plan on it working in the future. So in order for it to actually work, I'm going to be using the Johns-Hopkins interactive map for COVID-19 in order to provide locations that are already exposed to COVID-19, as well as providing locations such as nearby testing centers. I'm also going to be using this. I'm going to be building this by myself and using Java. So this is why I'm going to be using like a new database and etc. So in summary, first off, what does Vigil really do? Vigil reduces the exposure of COVID-19 by providing two features. It provides locations that are already exposed to COVID-19, as well as provides information of how prone a user is to having COVID-19. I'm also going to be using the Johns-Hopkins interactive map, like I said earlier, as one of the base or key features in order to make Vigil actually work. In the end, I'm asking for a grant funding of $5,000. So this includes using it for advertisement, publishing, and building my app. Hopefully you enjoyed this presentation, and if you have any other questions and answers, I would love to answer them.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have one question mostly on the technology side of it. So for COVID, I think the most important thing is contact tracing to kind of like assess your probability of either already infected or going to get infected. So you basically have like one part of the puzzle, but the real thing is probably using the exposure notification API. So have you looked into it, and what is the, I mean, what is it that you're not solving? Like, I want to understand that part.
So
like exposure notification allows you your contact tracing. So here, how much of it will actually?
Right. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do with that part of the app is basically take their recently visited locations as well as like their home address, and then see the amount of COVID-19 cases that are around their address. So for example, if they're in New York City, they're going to have a higher probability of getting COVID-19 than maybe me living here in San Jose, right? So I'm going to be basically using that, and the Johns-Hopkins interactive map, I'm going to be using their API. So when you search it up online, they basically have a map full of like locations that like it says the number of COVID-19 cases. It also says like how much it's decreasing and increasing every single day. So it is a really hard feature to use, which is why I want to use that feature and kind of convert it into my app. So my app kind of gives more features than that and also makes it easier for users to use. So that's how like the feature is basically going to go. It's basically going to take the amount of COVID-19 cases in their location and then use it for their probability. Obviously, it's not going to be the most accurate, but it's better than not having the feature at all. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Are there any other questions?
I just wanted to compliment you on what you've created. Did you have team members, or is this completely on your own?
This is completely on my own.
I think that it's really impressive how much you've thought through. The one area that I would recommend just sort of giving a little more thought to as you continue to develop is to take a look at how the data might get used. So I'll give you a real life concrete example. Let's say that I deliver for DoorDash. I might be concerned about my own health and safety. I might not want to deliver to certain neighborhoods because the rate is much higher, right? So that's a pretty innocent example of what could happen with the data. But then, second to that, we want to make sure that what we know about health in general is that zip codes are very specific, and outcomes over a person's life is often determined by their zip code. So I think that you're really onto something, and I just want to compliment you for presenting on your own and really just coming up with the idea and driving forward on it. I just put my question on the side, and if you want to look at it later, then you're welcome to have it, but we don't have to answer it right now.
Oh, okay. Well, is it okay if I answer?
You can, if you have an answer, sure.
Right, okay. So I actually haven't thought about that feature, if it's going to impact their future opportunities.
So the question is, I'll just read it aloud. Are you creating data that could follow users throughout their lifetime? Because what we know is that, you know, what we have on our phone today, we might upgrade, but then oftentimes that data, our digital twin, is going with us, right?
Yeah.
And it may be at some point connecting with our health data. So that could be through, you know, your own medical data that perhaps you haven't given authorization to somebody else to look at. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I actually haven't really thought about that. That's a really interesting take on like this app. What I understand, at least from the question, is like, is the data that I'm going to be collecting going to be transferred like whenever they're using something else too, and like how it's going to affect them in the future? I definitely haven't thought about that because I definitely have to do more research on the technological side, right? But I'm guessing that if they want to input that information, they could, but I don't think my app I don't really know if my app would necessarily need that information, but definitely we'll think about that in the future. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's a complicated question, and I think, again, that you've done a great job presenting by yourself and really thinking it through, and it might be helpful for you to have a thought partner at some point that you just check some of these things with, because that's definitely the advantage of having a small group sometimes, is just to work with someone else on this. So I'll turn it over to Samina.
Thanks, Vineeta. Yeah, I would echo Joanne, like, good job on the presentation and doing this by yourself. I mean, I don't have many questions beyond like, what kind of research have you done into the competitors for this kind of app? Like what other apps or online databases are out there that are helping people also figure out who's exposed in their community, where the exposure is, and where the testing services are?
Yeah, so I did a little research on the competitive market, and surprisingly, a lot of countries have released a similar app to this, but it's released by the government. But the US, well, I'm not don't know if they want to do it in the future, but the US has not released much on this. I know a few companies said they wanted to do it, but they wanted to do it through the government, and a lot of states declined that offer. So what I'm trying to do with this app is, if I make it nonprofit, basically anybody can try using it, and like the government doesn't have to release the app. So I do, like, when I look at the competitive market, specifically the US does not have any sort of app like this released, and I don't think it's going to have this type of app released in the future. So this is why I really thought it was like a good idea, because I feel like it's really essential, and at the same time, if it's better for like the users, things like that. So if the competitive market is kind of iffy right now, and it's surprising that no one else has really done this before, so yeah.
Thanks.
So my last comment to you in talking about the competitive market is to think about what you could do with this after COVID, because it's certainly not the only thing that's going to be out there. And then if you're really interested in learning more about zip codes and the way they relate to our health, is to look at something like Opportunity Insights at Harvard that tracks social mobility based on a person's zip code. You're welcome to email me about that later. But I think that you're on the right track, and this is maybe just one of many things that you'll continue to expand on.
Yeah, okay. What was it called again? I just want to note that down.
Opportunity Atlas or Opportunity Insights, and it's publicly available data sets that track social mobility based on zip code. And I think it will give you a really good sense of what's possible to determine based on a person's address, what we know about their future opportunities.
Okay, yeah, definitely. We'll look into that.